Welcome to the So Much More podcast, where we talk with people in the custom window treatment, soft home furnishings industry, and so much more. I'm your host, Ciel DeGuglielmo. My guest on the podcast today is Cathy Cohane. She is the owner of Curtain Cathy, and she did not start her business quite the same way as the rest of us because she already had some background in manufactured sewing, but it was more in the garment industry. So her transition was a little bit different than some of us. And anytime that I am in Cathy's company, I always enjoy her so much. And I hope that you enjoy listening to Cathy today. Cathy, thank you so much for saying yes and agreeing to do the podcast with me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I'm glad you could do this with me. So tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and a little bit about your business.
I started my business in 2003, 2002. I had been in the garment center doing production and quality control. My background is in home economics and clothing and textiles.
Okay.
And I went into the garment center strictly doing production. And then I traveled a lot, and then I worked for a couple of big companies, and then I had my son. And after he was born, I realized I didn't want to go back to the job that I had. So I stayed home for a couple of years. And then one of the people I knew from one of my first jobs said to me, do you want to have work per diem doing production? And I took that opportunity.
Okay.
And then he suggested we open a subcontract factory making children's wear, lingerie. And I always say that was probably the biggest mistake of my life. But I did that, and I did the sales, and I worked with a lot of the people that I'd worked with prior. I got them as clients. So I did that, and then I realized it wasn't for me.
Okay.
I didn't want to manage a lot of sewing machine operators, and their kids were sick, their husband needed them home. So I left. It was I think we were an LLC. I don't even know what we were. And I left. And then while I was still there, though, at the end, one of my girlfriends said to me, could you make me a table skirt?
Okay.
And it was Waverly.
Of course it was.
Waverly. The stripes, the floral in between. And I had always sewed. I sewed my whole life. So that is basically how I started my business. I made a table skirt.
Okay.
And so then I did that, and then, she gave my name to somebody else, and I did, it was the 80s.
Yeah.
It was the late 80s.
Okay.
Late 80s, early 90s. And so that's kind of, I was home. I needed to make money.
Right.
I knew that I couldn't go back to the garment center. That I knew. So I just started from there. And then I had a friend in Cranford who worked for a store in Livingston. And they're still there. It's called Precious Cargo. And back in the 80s and 90s, they used to sell, you'd come in with your mother or your grandmother, and you do layette and bedding.
Yeah, yes.
And so when the girls would come in to do the layette and bedding, the girls would go, well, I want matching window treatments. So they started recommending me, because it was a friend of mine from Cranford that worked there. So basically, I started my business doing valances. That's what it was.
For nurseries.
For baby nurseries.
Okay.
Who now I'm doing for nurseries for the kids that I did nurseries for.
Oh my gosh, that is so awesome.
Yeah. So there is no bedding anymore. There's no, because
the safety standards and everything else.
You can't put up bumpers. The bumper police are going to come and take you away.
So, but you can still do window treatments.
You can.
Yeah.
But really, so I started with these girls, and I call them the girls. Okay, so and they're all my age, but I started with these
girls.
The girls. It was Livingston and Short Hills. That's kind of, and then, they gave their name to their mother, or they gave their name to their aunt, or they gave their name to their girlfriend. And that's kind of how I started. It was all baby rooms. Everything was baby rooms.
Okay.
That's how I started my business.
So I'm curious, Cathy, because you had run a business before, did you start your business with we've all heard the stories. A lot of us started similarly. Someone asked us to make something. Do you think you ran your business any differently because of your background?
No, I just needed to make money.
Okay.
It was my first husband was self-employed, and we have him. I still live in the same house I lived in with him. I just wanted to make more money, and I just did. We needed more money. I always knew that I would go back to work.
Right.
I couldn't go back to the children's place because I traveled all the time, and I couldn't visualize myself like having somebody live in my first of all, my house was too small, but I just knew that I was not going to be able to do the job that I did before I had him.
Okay.
So I just it was like organic. I mean, I don't even know.
Okay.
I did so many. I did. My brother was in the garment center, so he paid me per diem to do, to make, tank tops. Like I had to make 40,000 tank tops.
Oh my goodness.
Don't even. Yeah. So, so I knew production and I knew how to sew. I didn't know. I mean, I made the window treatments in my first apartment. I made the window treatments when I moved into my house. But those were balloon shades and
right.
That stuff.
Yeah. So do you think that your approach, though, to how you made things was a little different because of doing the production sewing?
Yeah, because I did because I knew how to operate industrial machines.
Right. And that alone sets you apart from a lot of us, because the first time I sat down an industrial machine, I thought I was going to sew my fingers off.
Right.
Yeah.
The one thing was I had my factory. And before that, my first job out of college was in a factory in Brooklyn. I mean, I was a merchandiser, but my office was in a factory in Brooklyn. And it was a huge factory, like the door opens like this.
Right.
And these women, and it was all infant and toddler clothes.
Okay.
And these women, 50 years, sitting in a sewing machine, doing the snaps, in between
Oh, my
legs.
goodness, yes.
Or the pattern maker, George Habib, who taught me how to lay out patterns, get cuts per widths and stuff so all that stuff kind of fed into pattern repeats and that, and yardage is yardage.
Right.
So I think what I did, my degree is clothing and textiles. That's my degree. But what I did prior to that was always production. It was never design. I'm not a designer.
Okay. So I'm curious, did you start out with industrial machines working from home? Did you have industrial machines?
I had I don't even know where I got it, but I did have a Singer. I did. It wasn't one of my grandmothers was a tailor.
Okay.
My grandfather died. She was very young. She had to go to work. She used to say to me, never deal with crotches and armpits. My grandmother would say that.
Advice for the ages.
Right. While she was smoking cigarettes, because she was a gypsy. She was a Romanian gypsy, my grandmother.
Was she really?
Yes, she
was.
My
goodness.
She had a bun on the top of her head. She's fabulous. So I think, I don't even know where I got that Singer from. It might have been my ex-husband got it from here. But I didn't sew on a home machine.
Okay.
But then, of course, I got that, and then I got another, and now I have a Juki, which, of course, I love my Juki.
So you've been in the sewing industry for quite some time now, forever. Right. Have you ever considered doing anything else?
Well, I love what I do because it gives me a nice living.
Okay.
But I always said if I had my dithers, I would be a vegan food chef on it, because I'm vegan.
Okay.
So I would be a vegan food chef on a truck. Like, my girlfriend is vegan too. One of my dear friends is vegan. And we could just go, like, to festivals. But then we're like, oh, no, there's COVID.
Oh, right. There's that.
That thing, there's no festivals.
Right.
I love to cook for people. And I love to sit back and watch people enjoy my food. So I would be like a vegan food. That's what I would.
Okay.
In my other world, I would be like, just cook for people.
Okay.
And have them sit and eat with me.
All right. That sounds like a pretty good job, except I don't really love to cook. I would like to sit and eat with people.
Well,
but
you
not...
can come and eat my food. So
perfect.
My food
Perfect.
Is good. That's the only, I don't even know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Have you ever thought about quitting?
I don't know. I don't know how to do anything else that I can make this money.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, I'm independent, and that's what my goal always was, to be independent. And I think because I was married and then I got divorced and I had to buy him out of the house and I had to send my kid to college, like, being independent was always financially independent was always important to me. Okay. So, yes, do I think that there are times that it is difficult? Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, is there enough hours in a day? Never.
No.
Do I see my friends retiring? Yes. Do I think I'm going to retire? No. I don't.
Okay.
I don't know what else I could do.
Okay.
I don't know. Except for cooking. Yeah.
What have been some of the biggest challenges? We all know it's not easy, but for you personally, what have been some of the biggest challenges?
I just think, like, trying to carve out time for yourself. And my studio, my workroom is attached to my house. Mm-hmm. I am no longer in this basement.
Okay.
Thank God. Smoking. Sometimes on a warm summer day. It's only been like 30 years, but I think just finding time to not work. It's just, I don't know how to do any. I garden and I do things. I have lots of girlfriends. I have fun, but it's to do it all by myself. I did, and part of that program today was how to ask for help, and so I did. I hired a friend part-time to help me juggle, because I'm trying to operate a business the same that's this big to then when it was this big.
Right.
So, and I haven't really put in a lot of ways to, I didn't grow the way I do my business, the way my business grew. Okay. So I'm still trying to do everything myself, and I can't.
Right.
And I can't.
Right. It's you and your husband, right? Your husband's been helping out. Mm-hmm. Your husband helps you out, right?
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. He works for me.
Okay, I like that.
We're not partners, because you know why? He doesn't absorb like all the phone calls. Like, he's not the problem solver.
Okay.
He's not.
What does he do for you?
We make now Roman shades together.
Okay.
He used to do them by himself, but he no longer wants to do them by himself. So now I'm on one side of the table, he's on the other side. And, So, and he used to install, but now I use installers. So, I have to pay people so that I have more time.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, it's a fact of running a business. You cannot do it all yourself.
I don't want to go on the ladder anymore. Yeah. I just don't. I'll put up Roman shades. I'll do wood blinds. I'll do stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But do I really want to?
Okay.
I fell off a ladder last year, so I don't really,
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I was on a ladder the other day, and I was a little higher than I expected to be for the day. I was like, So I'm curious, Cathy, what is your definition of success?
For me, it was to be financially independent.
Okay.
And, my mom, who recently passed, but my mother was widowed, not from my father, but her first husband, at a very young age. She was like in her late 20s when she was widowed. And I mean, my mother came from, she wasn't rich, but she was comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So she used to always, and she has a home ec degree too.
Okay.
My mother. So she used to say, like, just make sure you always have your own money. Because you don't know.
Right.
You don't know what life's going to bring you. And not to say you're hiding it from anybody, but just, like, I just felt when I didn't have to ask anybody or show somebody how I spent what I earned. And also, for me, success is that I have, like, my reputation is sound.
Right.
Which has always been important, which is what my father told me. My father was self-employed. He was in the appliance business. And he used to say, the only thing you have is your reputation. You can't sell this. Like, what can I sell? What am I going to sell? I'm going to sell my parts. Like, I can't sell my name because people want me. I mean, just like I'm sure people want you. So if people say, if they think Cathy Cohane is walking in the door and Joe Schmo walks in the door, that's not the same. They want me.
Okay.
So for me, it was my reputation, I think, is impeccable.
Okay.
And my work ethic is impeccable. And I'm independent, financially independent from anybody else.
Okay.
Not independently wealthy, but independent.
Okay. And I love asking that question because I get such varied answers. And I love hearing, especially when somebody starts with, for me, because it's a very individual and personal conversation about what success means. So for you, what has been the greatest success in your business so far?
I'm still here. I'm still here.
That's great.
I always say, I got divorced in 2003. And I had $5,000 in my bank account. My son was going off to college. I had no alimony or child support. And I had to buy my ex-husband out of the house if I wanted to stay. I didn't know how I was going to. Who would even know?
Right.
How would I even know how to do that? But I believed that I could do it.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to move. I love my house. I have a love affair with my house, and I didn't want to move. So I figure I would just keep going and keep going and keep going, and eventually I'd get the money to send my son to college, and I would be able to buy my ex-husband. So I don't care that I have a mortgage. What do I care? So somehow I did it. I don't know how I did, honestly. I
think it was that kept going and kept going and kept going. I think that's how you did it.
When the bank account would go down like $600, I'm like, oh my God, like really? But I was a fool to believe that I could do it, but I did do it.
Well, apparently not a fool, because here you are, still here.
I did, right? I'm still here. So I'm still here, and I really do love what I do. I do.
Cathy, I'm curious, especially because you had a reason to keep going and keep going. That can be a great motivator, or it can be something that squashes us. And then if there's a mistake or a failure, that can really throw us overboard. So I'm curious how you handle failures or mistakes in your business.
So I just make it right. Like own it. Own it. And if the client never knows, better.
Oh, always. Right.
Always. They don't need to know what's going on, like, behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But I, if I make a mistake, and mistakes happen, I never do it deliberately. I try to be as careful as I possibly can, especially cutting into very expensive fabrics. No one can cut it but me. But I own it. And I did have a mistake. It was not my mistake. I did not measure wrong. My documentation was correct, but it was not what the customer expected.
Okay.
So I had to suck it up, replace the fabric, make it right.
Right.
And hopefully down the road that will come back to me tenfold. I think I never want to make a mistake. I don't.
No, of course not.
And I made a mistake very, very early on in my career. And I remember standing up on the ladder and like the silk lined and interlined drapes were perfect. The valance, I don't even remember the valance, but the valance, silk lined and interlined drapes were perfect. And I put up the sheer, because I was still installing myself. I put up the sheer and I looked and they were not to the ground.
Oh.
Like this much off.
Oh.
And I was like, no worries. And then, but I wasn't selling fabric at that time.
Okay.
So I had to buy fabric through somebody else. But I made it right. The drapes that were wrong, the sheers hung in my house for years.
There you go.
But you know, it's just like mistake. If I made a mistake every day, I would be concerned. But you know, you get one every couple of years. I mean, it just happens. I measure thousands of windows. So
we are human beings after all.
And you know, no one says it's like, and even Luann said today, you know, the typical thing, like we're not curing cancer with our window treatments. I mean, in the grand scheme of life, is it terrible? I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to eat fabric. I don't want to repay, you know, but it happens. I mean, and I still have a business, so obviously.
Exactly. And I think that putting things in perspective, I think we're also hard on ourselves, but putting things in perspective, in the grand scheme of things, a pair of shears that's 5 inches off the floor is not the end of the world. It can all be fixed.
15.
Oh, ouch.
Like, I remember going like this and going, oh my God. But they were like one of my best clients, and I love them. And to this day, I've done many houses with them. And we always joke about the fabric. I go like, see, thank God the silk that were lined. And that was when I was not subcontracting.
Okay.
They were triple width. Silk, line. I remember doing them on my dining room table. It was I didn't have my workroom then.
I know. I think about some of the things that I accomplished before I had a work table, and just being able to get those things done.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah, it really is amazing what we can do when we put our mind to it. Doesn't mean we should continue to do that.
No, I have changed some of my processes. Thank God.
Cathy, are you a book reader? Do you like to read business books, or is there anything about that now?
No. I don't. Although I'm going to start reading a little bit more, but I used to read all the time, but then I'd fall asleep when I'd read. So I knit. That's like what I do.
Okay.
I knit, and I don't read business books. Because they start talking numbers and economics. I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about. No, I am not a reader.
Okay. Do you use much technology in your business?
I use, I'm trying, but it's, Rosemary and I talk about this all the time. We have to run our workrooms. We have to measure. We have to, accounts receivable, accounts payable, purchasing, production, design, all this stuff. And then on top of that, we're supposed to be, putting on Instagram every single solitary day, and then Facebook. And then I'm like, so I do try to use Facebook and Instagram. But, I do Instagram first, and then it sort of transfers over to Facebook. That's what I use. I mean, obviously, I use a computer, and everything I draft is by hand. I mean, there's no drafting anymore, but, my old patterns I used to draft.
Okay.
I mean, I can make a pattern, but right now it's, Roman shades and panels.
Okay. When you make a pattern, do you cut it out of paper first, or do you use muslin and drape?
No, I use pattern paper.
Okay.
Pattern paper.
Okay.
The dot paper?
Yes.
Is what I use, dot paper.
Okay.
I learned that from college, dot paper.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. I'm not a pattern maker. It's not something I've ever been taught or had much interest in. But it's I'm fascinated by the creation of it and people who can do it.
Yeah.
And I love watching when people will do some draping and somebody recently was posting this or that, and they're playing around with the muslin. And I'm so amazed by that and how people can do that.
However, after I do it in fabric. Like, just something.
Right.
Because I'm three-dimensional. That's why I don't think I could ever get, the higher maths. I was good in certain maths.
Okay.
But the higher maths, the X, Y, and the 2 and the 1, because I don't understand that.
Right.
I understand 2 apples and 1 apple is 3 apples. I mean,
right.
So I back in the day with swags and all those valances that we used to make, I would always make a sample out of fabric before I cut it, just to understand how it would look, And I miss those days of cute valances. I do.
Yeah. It's funny. I have a client who's been asking about balances, and the designer's been pushing against it. I'm like, I do kind of like balances. We'll see. I don't know if they're appropriate for this room, but I do like them.
I have to tell you, I think because I started my business in the basement, okay, and I had a table, drop down. It was easy because it was valances. It was pieces.
Right.
It was always pieces.
Right.
It wasn't these long, big things of yards of fabric. They were pattern pieces. So it was easy to cut them. And then, I moved to this big thing on top of my dining room table, my baker table. My mother was thrilled that I put a table on top of her baker table. We had this table that went on top of the baker table that made it this huge table. And then my mother would be like, that's like my baker table.
Yeah. Well, I promise I'm not going to hurt it, Mom. I have something over top of it.
My mother used to come and cut for me.
Did she really?
Yeah. She used to cut for me.
Oh, wow.
I used to, you know what? When I think about it, it was crazy. I don't know. Smoke and mirrors.
Some days, it's exactly what it is.
Right? It's smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
But it still gets done, so.
Yes. The sponsors of the So Much More podcast allow me to bring guests to you each week. And without them, I couldn't do it. I'm pleased as the owner of the Curtains and Soft Furnishings Resource Library that I can use the library to help sponsor the podcast as well. The library hosts the industry's largest curated collection of educational resources for the custom home furnishings professional. Membership to the library gives you access to a wealth of downloadable reference materials, videos, live events, as well as a community of support to help you develop your design, sales, and fabrication skills, and to grow or start a business. Join the library today at csfrl.org. The Workroom Channel is the premier online training provider for professional fabrication skills. Go to theworkroomchannel.com to browse the selection of anytime access courses created by industry experts. Watch detailed demonstration videos, download companion materials, and participate in private course discussion boards with your instructor and classmates from around the world. Start your course path today at theworkroomchannel.com. Education, networking, visibility, and industry discounts are just a few of the benefits that are offered to members of the Window Covering Association of America. The WCAA is the only national nonprofit trade association that's dedicated to the window coverings industry and the dealers, decorators, workrooms, designers, and installers that make up our membership. The library is a gold-level sponsor of the WCAA. Join today at WCAA.org. WCAA, where you are never in business alone. Discover Klimaka Studios, where innovation meets exceptional design. Klimaka fabric and wallpaper collections are inspired by the original works of collaborating artists and developed with the understanding of how fabrics are manipulated into exquisite soft home furnishings. Workroom businesses enjoy exclusive access to engineered designs and best trade pricing. From clever layouts to classic linen prints, Clamacca Studios delivers the quality and consistency that your business demands. And Clamacca's reliable, on-time delivery keeps your projects running smoothly. Go to clamaccastudios.com for swatches and trade account information. Clamacca Studios, for the joy and profit of workrooms. What 3 business items could you not live without, Cathy?
My Juki sewing machine, which I love, 8700. My husband, okay, so we have, the way we do our Romans, which is very different than everybody else. We have fences, we put blocks and then we iron, iron against. I did finally get a commercial iron.
Okay.
So I didn't get a boiler iron, I got a drip iron. But I have to tell you, my drip iron is 3 times as fast as the home irons that I'm using. And then my scissors, I just love my scissors.
What kind of scissors do you have?
They're huge. They're just big. Everyone comes into my studio, they're like, oh my God. I don't even know what that maybe? I don't even know what they are.
They're big. I like that.
Obviously my sewing machines. I have a commercial, and then I have a commercial blind stitch machine, which somebody I knew had a factory, and he was moving to a different factory and downsizing, and he says, go and get whatever you want. And I'd have a tabletop blind stitch, and I got a big blind stitch.
Okay.
It's night and day.
Yeah, big difference.
That thing is 90 years old. We sprayed it with that, the air thing. We could put a little oil on it and the thing goes.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. My very first industrial machine was given to me, and it had been in the owner's basement for years. She was a seamstress, but she made dance and ice skating costumes. Beautiful, beautiful work. But she didn't want an industrial machine for that. And when she gave it to me, she didn't even know if it was going to work. And, how many years later, I think I got a new engine. Listen to me. It got a new motor at one point. But it's old. It's really old.
I think my blind stitch machine is at least 90 years old.
Wow.
It's at least 90 years old. With the table, and literally we went like this. Like this, oil. And then once a year, or every 2 years, I screw it up. And then I love being in a factory. There's nothing that brings me more pleasure. I've been in factories in, down south, because of the garment center, in Chinatown, which is awful, but in the Orient, in California, in Florida. I just love being in factories.
Okay. There's something about the environment.
About being in factories. I don't know what it is. So those are the things. I mean, it's obviously a sewing machine.
Right.
Obviously my scissors. And these, the procedures, these things that we created, my husband created, so that our Romans are very accurate. And I don't make a lot of panels, so I make more Romans than anything.
Okay.
So,
What's your favorite thing to make?
I can make a 15-minute pillow with a zipper.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, 15-minute pillow with a zipper.
Okay.
No, I I really do like making little baby rooms. I just love.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Panels are a little. Are they exciting? No. Okay. Romans. I love Romans. I love pleating to pattern. Rosemary Garner taught me that. The importance of pleating to pattern.
Right.
And I love that. I like making Romans. I mean, obviously I like making, we're not really making that much else right now.
Okay. Yeah. There's not a lot of variety now.
No, there's not a lot of variety. I mean, I do a lot of pillows. I do a lot of pillows.
Okay.
A lot.
Cathy, do you do any sewing for pleasure? Or is it only work related?
No, I sew. I don't sew I always try to sew for myself, but that never happens. So I buy fabric, I buy patterns, but I have I have 2 real godchildren, but they're one's in college and one's in the high school. But I have 2 fairy godchildren, so I can't be their godmother because I'm not Catholic.
Okay,
I'm their fairy godmother.
Okay,
I'm fairy godmother Cathy. So I make, and Lola is 12 and Harry is 8.
Okay.
So I make their Christmas morning pajamas every single year.
Aww.
I know.
That's so sweet.
I know, their Christmas morning pajamas every year. And then I used to make their Halloween costumes.
Okay.
But now, Lola's 12, whatever.
Yeah.
She wants to be a hippie. And Harry, whatever.
He wants to be the latest superhero, and you buy that at the store.
I always go, every August, I go, do you want me to make you, what do you want to be for Halloween? And then Lola goes, I've made so many costumes for Lola. It's amazing what I've made for her. So
I think that's awesome.
I know, but I do make their Christmas pajamas, their Christmas morning pajamas for every single year.
I love that.
And I love that. So I do that. I also do, and I did this for years. So I used to make, when my friends' kids have babies, I owe my good friends. So the shower gift is always the baby room window treatment.
Oh, that's really lovely.
Whatever they want. I don't care. Whatever fabric I give them the whole thing, lock, stock, and barrel.
Okay.
Window treatments. But then it's a commercial pattern, but it's like a bear. So I always make the bear using the fabric from the window treatment.
That's so sweet.
But then I started making, friends of mine, one of my friends, when her granddaughter was born, her husband had passed years before. So but she had saved some of his clothes. Mm-hmm. So I made, I do memory bears.
Yes.
So I do the memory bears.
Okay.
So I make memory bears, I make memory pillows, I make that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I don't charge. I don't do that.
That's for special people in your life.
Yes, and I give memory bears to people from clothes from there. And I do have a dress of my mother's, which I do need to make.
Okay.
For myself.
What do you think you'll make from that?
I'm making the bear from my mother's dress that she wore for her 90th birthday party.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's hard, Cathy. It really is. I did. My dad always wore Brooks Brothers button-down shirts. Yes. Even long after he retired, he showed up at my house for dinner. He had a Brooks Brothers shirt and a jacket on. And the year that he passed away, I made little heart-shaped, because there are so many of us in my family. Yeah. I wasn't making memory pillows for all those people. Right. But I did make heart-shaped Christmas ornaments out of one of the shirts that he would wear. Yeah. I love it. It was, and it was so great. But here's the really awful part. My oldest daughter just said to me recently, you didn't make one of those for me, because they still lived at home when my dad passed away. Well, my girls don't live here anymore, and she's like, I'd like to have one of those from Pop Shirt. Yeah. The good news is I have more fabric. Yeah. I still have one of his shirts, so I can still make some more.
I've never done anything for my father. My father's gone 28 years, but I have my father was in the appliance business, so he wore a uniform every day.
Okay.
So he had the coat that said Lou. Mm-hmm. Blue, as if there was anybody else. It was only him. Blue, and then the other side said Atco Appliance, but it's in the attic. So every now and again I walk up into the attic and I put the thing. And then he always used to wear Lacoste sweaters, remember?
Yeah. Yes. With the alligator on it. Yeah. Yes.
Christmas. Yes. It was Thanksgiving. Always, we didn't celebrate Christmas back in those days, but it was always Thanksgiving. It was red. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I'll make my mother's the pillow, the bear for my mother, and then I'll make the pillow for my dad.
That is a great idea.
Yeah. So that's what I just love sewing. Lola and Harry, they kind of know that they're going to get it, but they never know what they're really going to get.
Oh,
so I really
that's so special. Yeah.
Harry loves dinosaurs, so he got dinosaur pajamas this year.
Okay.
So I love it. I love to sew.
Okay.
You don't really sew when you're making Roman
shapes. It's really different, and I really feel like I didn't pay attention to that part where they said if you turn your passion into your business, it's not your passion anymore.
I know.
Because it becomes your job.
Right. Right. And I also did for years, for 19 years, I did costumes for a local theater company. Mm-hmm. And I did that, 19 years. I did like
That's
60
a long
shows.
time.
It's a lot of shows.
Yeah.
It was a lot of shows. I don't do that anymore because they didn't pay me, and it was becoming a job and not...
Okay. Not a well-paying job?
No, it was like they didn't pay me anything.
Oh, yeah.
They paid me nothing.
Okay.
So I was like, nah, I'm not doing that anymore. So, but, the kids. Lola and Harry.
Oh, that's sweet.
They go, you're a fairy godmother. I go, yeah, I'm a fairy. I'm the blue. I'm the blue one. I forget what her name is, but I'm the chubby blue one. From Cinderella?
Yeah.
The three fairy godmothers?
Yes.
I'm the blue one.
Okay, but you're not chubby, Cathy.
I know. I'm real close. Yeah, exactly.
What do you do extremely well?
Sales and marketing.
Okay, that's a great answer. I love that.
Sales and marketing.
Okay. What do you not do so well?
I wrote this one down. Hold on. I wrote it down.
Uh-oh, I'm scared.
I wrote it down. It said, what do you not do well? Tracking my money. Bad.
Oops. Okay.
Bad.
Okay.
Very bad. I don't like numbers. Like, I like numbers when you're figuring out repeats and that kind of numbers. I am not good at, like, keeping track of how much, I know how much money I make, but where my money goes, if I could tighten it up a little bit, or when my accountant says, I'm ready for you on Thursday, and I'm like, okie dokie. I'm bringing my papers, and he said, so now my girlfriend who I did hire, numbers don't bother her, spreadsheets don't bother her. Okay. She's putting me all, I go, I said to my accountant, I go, you're going to be so excited because now it's literally, I go and there's things it's written on like a piece, this.
Cathy, I love that. But here's the thing. You're not great at that. You don't enjoy it. You have somebody else to do that for you now.
I'm doing it, and she can look at my money. I don't care. A lot of people are very secretive about how much money they make, and so I don't mind that she sees that.
Okay. You have to be comfortable with someone to be able to let them in.
They're looking at my books.
Yeah.
So I'm really not good with like spreadsheets because I'm doing everything.
Right.
And I take care of my business, but I also take care of my house because my husband, I do everything.
Okay.
Let's just say that.
We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. We'll leave it at that.
Cathy, what about you would surprise people?
I have performance, and I wrote this down, performance anxiety. I could never get up in front of a group of people and talk.
And yet sales and marketing you're good at.
But I'm good one-on-one.
Okay.
I can walk into people's houses. I've never met them before, do the whole thing, be funny, which I think I'm
You are very funny. You don't have to pretend. You are very funny.
I'm naturally funny. So, but I could never I could never get up in front of a group of people and give a presentation without being sick to my stomach.
Okay. So that's interesting, Cathy, because I feel like you're a very extroverted person and you're very easy to talk to, but yet that surprises me that you would feel uncomfortable.
And Robin and I were talking about that today because she said she can't do it either. But I said, how do you get up and teach or something? She goes, I pretend I'm my sister. And she's a twin.
She's a twin, right?
And so am I. But
I didn't know that. You're a twin. Okay.
I'm a twin. So I said, well, maybe I should become my sister who doesn't care what anyone thinks about her.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah. That's what she said.
Okay.
She said she gets up and presents herself like she's her sister.
I love that.
I know. I thought that was really...
That is excellent.
I said, maybe I should be Cindy and not Cathy.
Cathy, in what ways do you think you're resilient?
Because I rise to the occasion.
Okay.
You know, it was my choice to not be married anymore.
Okay.
But I knew that I wanted to stay in my house. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that I already had a business, but it was this big. I just rise to the occasion. I show up. I just show up and I get it done.
Okay.
So, you know, I ran my business, I took care of my son, and then he left, and then, you know, I took care of my mother. And then somehow I just get it done.
Yeah. It's so interesting to me because when I ask that question, I think you have to be resilient to be a business owner. But it very often is, well, I just keep going. And I think that we don't recognize not everyone does that. That is what makes us resilient, is that we do keep going.
We just keep going. I don't know what else, you know, like I don't know what else at this point I would be able to do and still keep my house.
Right.
So, you know, my whole thing was I always just wanted to keep my house because I love my house and I love my neighborhood and I love my neighbors. And my friends are like, I'm surrounded by my friends. Like, I know my neighbors.
Right.
So do I want to go and reinvent myself and start over and make new friends? No, not really.
Okay.
You know, so it's just, I just get up every day and I just do it. So I've never relied on anybody. I've just done it myself. And maybe if I'd made other choices in my life, but I think it's pretty good.
Okay. All right. I like that.
Like, I could have ended up I could have said, I don't want to do this and ended up in an apartment.
Right.
And not been able to keep my house.
Right. You wouldn't have been able to run this business out of an apartment.
Right.
Yeah.
Out of an apartment.
Yeah.
So one of my friends who has been married forever has said to me, like, you know, you don't even realize how much you can do. Because, like, you know, if the phone breaks, I take care of the phone. If this breaks, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that I've seen, Cathy, is that when we don't have someone else that we can count on, we can only count on ourselves, we do it. And that's, again, I stopped asking, do you think you're resilient? Because we, in this industry in particular, we all are. Right. I'd rather hear why you think you're resilient.
Well, just because I'm still here. I mean, I don't think I'm unique. I don't always think, like, I know there's a lot of other people doing what I do. Okay? So, you know, the reason people come to me is maybe because somebody told them that I'm good, that my work is good, that I'm easy to work with, that I deliver what I say I'm going to deliver.
Right.
Okay? And that, but it's also that on days when I don't really want to get up, I still get up.
Okay.
I still get up. And, you know, after my mom passed, and I took care of her for, you know, a long time. I took care of her. And then after she passed, I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, I used to besides, like, all of a sudden I had time.
Right.
Like, I had time.
Yeah.
Like, and I remember calling my oldest brother and go, what am I supposed to do with the notebook? And he said, throw it away. I go, but I can't. Like, that was 10 years. And, you know, that I took care of, I not only took care of me, my house, my business.
You also took care of her life.
Of her life.
Yes.
I managed her life.
Okay.
So I just get up, you know, I don't have the luxury of retiring. And, you know, I just do, listen, I could be pushing paper like this, okay? But I get to do other stuff that's really fun.
And you get to be independent. I think that's really,
I think being independent is like, no, I don't have to answer to anybody.
I think that's wonderful that you know that about yourself, Cathy. I really do. So when we were discussing doing the podcast, you just mentioned something about friends. You have an unusual friend. I love this story. Tell us about your pen pal.
Oh, my Colleen. So we were 10, and I don't even know. It was like Pen Pals of America or something.
You know, I had a pen pal too, and I was trying to think about it. Pen Pals of America sounds right to me.
I think it was Pen Pals of America. I don't know why my mother maybe my sister had one too. Not quite sure. So I had, was matched up with, I had 3 pen pals. I had Cohane, and then there was Jane, who was in Tokyo. I don't know her last name. And then there was one in England.
Okay.
And so we would write letters. Now we'd get that glassine envelope.
Yes.
And you'd be so excited.
Yeah.
And, it was like all those pages. So, we wrote back and forth for years. And then life goes on and you don't hear anything. And then I got like a message on Facebook.
Really?
That's how she found me.
Okay.
My middle name is my maiden name.
Okay.
So, because Cohane was the first husband's name. So she contacted me. So now we're like these old girlfriends who like spend hours on the phone, FaceTiming each other, and she's just like this sweet little spot in my life.
And where does she live?
She lives in Canberra, Australia.
Okay.
So it's like 14 hours ahead.
Okay.
So I call her Saturday night at like 10.
Okay.
And then it's noon Sunday there so she can have beer.
You can do happy hour together legitimately.
Begins.
I love it.
Like she has children and grandchildren. She's on her second marriage. I've met her husband. He's walked by. My husband has walked by. But it's like this ridiculous relationship because it's like, I was 10.
Right. That's amazing.
I know. It's really, really, really amazing. And we decided we think we're going to start writing letters back to each other.
That would be so cool.
I know, to write letters. And I'm trying to get to Australia at Christmas.
Okay.
So,
that would be awesome.
We have never met, in the flesh.
In person, right.
In person. Right. Now because of this, we can see each other.
Yeah. So that's amazing when you think about, we were just joking the other day, my husband and I were going somewhere, and for some reason I put the directions on my phone and his is connected to his car, but it was on my phone, and it was telling us turn left at the next stop sign. And I said, do you remember going to mapquest.com and printing out the directions? And of course, that makes us sound old, but I'm pretty sure you and I both had I had the Bucks County map in my car that was like 60 pages long.
And then you had to it was like 14 pages later.
Yes. And what a difference it was to print out the mapquest.com, and it would tell you turn by turn. Of course, you had to look at it, but I just was laughing about how much technology has changed.
Right.
But there is something to be said for going back to the letter writing. Like it's wonderful that you two get to see each other on Zoom or FaceTime or whatever. But the letter writing is really special.
And I wrote to my cousin on my Peter Mac stationery, which I still have.
Oh, really?
I still have my Peter Mac stationery.
Okay.
So I wrote to my cousins. I wrote to my friend Susie, who had moved away. And I had these pen pals, and like really, serious.
That is so awesome.
But it's so funny how many things her and I have in common.
Wow.
We always, I guess, had things in common. I don't know.
But it continued as you matured.
Yeah. And now we're like, it's just like this sweet friend. Like, it's like a best friend that you've never met.
That is so awesome.
I know.
I love that.
I know. I adore her. I absolutely do. So hopefully Christmas, maybe.
I'll keep my fingers crossed for you.
I know. I need a lot of money to get to it.
How many window treatments do we need to sell?
A lot.
Kathy, I am enjoying this conversation, but I'm going to wrap up with you and ask you the final question.
Okay.
First of all, you did mention Instagram and Facebook. How would people find you? It's Kurt and Cathy.
Yeah, well, Instagram is Kurt and Cathy. Facebook is Kathleen Cohane, DBA Kurt and Cathy.
Okay, and I will put links to both of those in the show notes.
Yes. I have never gotten like a website. I know.
What advice would you give to someone who's new in the business or someone who's been in business for a while?
I think sometimes us old timers make it look easy.
Okay. I don't disagree with you.
Right?
Yeah.
We make it look like it's, but we've all been in the trenches.
Mm-hmm.
My first job, when I got out of college and I knew I was going to be working for my cousin, my mother's cousin, he said, listen, I'm starting you picking and packing boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're going to end up and you're going to be a design assistant or whatever it is, but you got to start in the warehouse.
Right.
Picking and packing boxes. So although it looks easy, I think that, you got to stick with it. You got to, like, when there's a problem, you solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people, and I'm sure you do as well, who, when the going gets tough, they bail.
Yeah. They run around with their hands up in the air. Yeah.
You just got to say, okay, nobody died.
Mm-hmm.
Make it right. Protect your reputation.
Mm-hmm.
And just, you need to stick with it. It's a great business.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really, really great business, but it's not easy. It's
right.
work.
It is.
Work. So you got to put the work in, get knowledge. Like now, in the beginning, there was nobody. Mm-hmm. Nobody showed me how to do this.
Right.
Now, at least, thank God, you have people that you can call. You got a problem, you got an issue, you got the library, you got all these things now, mm-hmm. resources to kind of help you along.
Right.
But back in the day, it was books. Remember
exactly. From the library.
From the library.
Yep.
Right. Remember reading books? So it could be a great business, but it's a business. It's not a hobby. Mm-hmm. This isn't a hobby. I don't do this because I like to sew.
Right.
So I would say, give yourself the credit that you're in business.
Okay.
And that took me a long time
mm-hmm.
to realize that.
Took a lot of us a long time.
A long time.
Yeah.
That this is like sometimes at the end of the year when I see what I've done, mm-hmm. I go, oh, it's a business.
Yeah.
It might look like smoke and mirrors, but it is. So just like it could be great, but you got to make sure that you protect yourself. Mm-hmm. You do what's right for your clients because ultimately they're the ones who are paying you.
Yes.
And if somebody is dissatisfied, always, always, always make it right because all you need really is one person to say, you didn't do it right. You didn't.
Right.
And we've all had those clients.
Yes, we have. Yeah, we have.
I've had one or two that in 20-something years that maybe weren't satisfied.
Okay.
So I would say it's not easy. It's not easy running your own business. And there's always the, fluctuating income. You don't know.
Right.
So that's what I would say.
Okay. Cathy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have this ability to make people feel like just you welcome them in and make them feel like a friend. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it.
It is my pleasure.
Cathy Cohane is one of those people that you just feel like you've known her forever when you talk with her. And I just thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and it was on a day when I needed a good conversation. So I hope that you enjoyed hearing from Cathy as much as I enjoyed talking with her today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day.